Yeah, no, it's fun.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I love it.
I told you this makes the slider look like jump
Child's
change.
play.
Hi, my name is Jason Lanier. We're here at the Sony Pictures Studios. We're here at the lot, stage 7. It's an awesome opportunity. This is where they film a lot of broadcast TV, movies, and other stuff. I've never been on a set before, so I gotta say this is quite an opportunity. I'm here with Kelly. She's an amateur photographer who had a lot of questions for me, and we had an opportunity to shoot at this amazing location, film it for you guys, and hopefully the questions that she asks me are some questions that some of the rest of you out there have. And so we're hoping that we can give you guys a little glimpse into how I think the photography industry is going and share it with the rest of you. So this is Kelly.
Hey guys. So I really want to talk to you, Jason, because, to be honest, last year I just came across your video. In the first video I came across was, 10 reasons why I left Nikon and shooting with Sony. And I also shoot with a Sony, so I shoot right now with the 77 Mark II Alpha series. And I do get asked a lot, what your choice about, shooting with the Sony. There's a lot of reasons, but I was curious to hear a professional photographer talk about that. So as time went on, I passed your video to my mother, and she said, "Oh, I have lots of questions for Jason too." So,
Oh, very cool.
So we'll get to that. But in the meantime, yes, I'm an amateur photographer. It's not my day job. I don't know if it ever will be my day job, but I really want to kind of take myself to the next level. And so I'm interested in someone like you who's done that, who's really gone from amateur. You did sort of quit your day job, and now you are
very much so, yeah.
Definitely full-time, photographer. You've done a lot of work around the world, and people like me are interested in how you do that, because as you say, there's so many photographers and also wannabe photographers and picture shooters out there. But some people, they want to know where that line is. So I enrolled in event photography at UCLA Extension. So I'm taking this great class. It's a new class, and it's fantastic. And it's taught by a really wonderful woman named Jenna Schoenfield, and she's been doing LA Times photography and so forth. So the assignment she gave us was to cold call a photographer and ask them in particular about their website, starting with that, a series of questions. So that's how you and I sort of started talking. And we decided it would be good to share this on video. So the first question I'm supposed to ask you is, how do you use your website in particular, your website, and how has your website helped in getting new clients?
I think, I don't know if you have other questions about social media, but I think websites are where your home is. Mm-hmm. That's where your permanent residence is. Mm-hmm. It's where the vast majority of your portfolio resides. Mm-hmm. I think the key to getting clients as it relates to websites are the vast majority of my workshop attendees, my portrait or wedding or whatever other clients, they find me on social media. Mm-hmm. But then I funnel them to my website. Mm-hmm. So when I think a website for me is where I share a more broad amount of my work. Mm-hmm. But I think for getting clients, I don't, just for me personally, I think that the website is great, but most people these days are going to find you through social media.
So I notice that with other photographers as well. So typically they'll have a website and maybe a blog, maybe a Facebook page, Twitter, whatever, some other aspect, and YouTube. And so what for you is what gets you the most client traction, action, all of that?
Well, YouTube destroys the rest. Yeah, YouTube has changed my life, and I think will continue to change my life. And it's funny because about a year ago, I was in West Virginia teaching a workshop, because YouTube really took off for me about a year ago. Mm. And I told my assistant, YouTube's going to change our lives, and it's hard when you're telling your assistant that. And she's like, yeah, I know. And I remember waking up next to my wife in bed and checking my email in the morning, and I'm like, I'm starting to get more and more followers on YouTube. And what I noticed is that Facebook, they use their algorithms to kind of kill your audience. Right. About 8% of your followers actually see your posts. That's what I hear, And you know, I think so. A photographer's best friend is YouTube and Instagram. Instagram because they don't limit how many people can see your posts.
So, does it give you a feeling like you can control who you connect with and how they connect better through YouTube?
YouTube, you got to understand something as a photographer. We're in a people business. The best thing that I get from my clients is they've watched so many of my videos by the time they hire me that when they meet me and then when they shoot with me, they say, "You're just like you were on your videos." And so I'm able to share with them who I am. Because people not only hire you because of your work, they hire you because of your personality, because you have to spend a good amount of time with a photographer. So you may like their work, but if you don't like them as a person, the chances of you hiring them are slim to none.
Got it. That makes sense to me. Okay. So who is your audience?
It used to be a lot of potential clients, and my audience is very much a large percentage of my audience are photographers now. So I have a lot of photographers reaching out to me. I just did workshops in Edinburgh, Scotland, and London, and New York, and we're doing them all over the place. And it's really moved a lot into photography. And I think the reason for that is because not a lot of photographers share a lot of information, or if they do, they limit what they share. And that's not me. I'm not worried about competition, so I really am an open book. I purposely haven't screened your questions because I don't want to know what they are. I just want you to ask me whatever you want.
Well, I'll come back to that in my non-official questions, but for my official questions for the moment, so how do you find clients? Is it really through YouTube, or does it just happen, or do you advertise?
When I was a newer photographer, I want to try to give advice as to when I was newer as well.
Right.
When I was a newer photographer, no, social media will not do it for you. People need to understand that.
Right.
Social media doesn't work when you have 100 followers.
Right.
It, quite frankly, doesn't. Social media works when you have a lot of followers, like I do now. So earlier on in my career, it was bridal fairs. It was
like a trade show.
Trade shows. Yep, you got to get yourself in front of your potential clients. You got to talk to them. Again, photography is a talking people business. So if I was struggling for business now, first thing I would do is book a bridal fair.
Okay.
And I would go get some business.
That's for wedding photography.
Yeah.
So, because our class is about event photography, so and we kind of talked about what is an event, how do you define an event? So you do weddings and you do other things like landscape and so forth, but for event photography, what do you do?
Like what kind of events?
Yeah, well, that's the question.
Like events, like corporate events?
Anything. So and as we seek to define what is an event, for our class, it's sort of, because people want to, maybe they think they want to become an event photographer, but what does that mean? Yes, there's weddings, bar mitzvahs, that kind of thing, and yes, there's corporate events like the TED conference, which would be hard to get into to shoot. But what else is there? Or what do you do?
What do I shoot?
Yeah.
For event photography?
Yeah.
I do corporate. I used to do a lot more. I used to do some corporate events, I should say. I still do some weddings. What else do I shoot? I shoot for organizations,
Right.
but I don't know if that would necessarily be an event photography. I mean, I do shoot for corporations like Out of the Ashes. I'll shoot for them in Ethiopia. I'll do stuff of that nature. And I guess that would be event photography. I mean, from a certain standpoint, we catalog each one of the children that work within the organization, and that's something they had never done, and it really helped to boost their fundraising efforts. I think the best advice I could give to anybody is whatever vocation you want to get into, beg, borrow, and steal. Well, don't steal, but seriously, get in there and find a way to sneak in.
Right.
Just find a way to, whatever it is, even if it's tiny, you got to get your head in the door, your foot in the door. And if you do, it will open more doors for you.
Got it. Okay, that makes sense to me. So one of the mysterious things that all of us amateurs are, everyone wants to figure out or doesn't understand it, is how do you determine your rates and what goes into that? And I know it's different for each photographer. There's no maybe set way, and I know there's things online you can look up, but.
Yeah, I think a lot of them are kind of, look, I'm just going to tell you the way I did it.
Yeah.
you have to figure out what your time is worth.
Right.
I always tell my students, because I do workshops, like I said, I tell my students, you know, whatever you're charging now, you need to push your rates until people start saying no. You need to push you need to have a degree of self-awareness as to where your current skill level is at. You can't look at your work and say, well, that guy charges $10,000 for a wedding, so I should charge that. Well, how much has that guy or gal done? You know what I mean? And I think people need to think about that. How do you determine your rates? My personality in general, I'm very open with my clients. If you called me up and said, hey, I'm getting married, I want to shoot, I'd say, what's your budget? Right. 9 times out of 10, you're going to say, I don't have one. Or you do have one, you don't want to tell me what it is. Right. I'm going to keep pushing you until I get it. And it's actually not very hard. I'll say to them, okay, so if you spent $10,000 on a wedding, would that be too much? Oh my gosh, that's way too much. If you spend $5,000, too much. $1,000, oh yeah, that's fantastic. What if you spent $2,000? What if you spent $3,000? That'd be kind of my budget, my limit. Mm-hmm. You'd be amazed. I've done this hundreds of times. Mm-hmm. And every time, so I had a rapper call me literally this morning from Detroit and say, we want you to film a music video for us. And I said, what's your budget? I mean, I'm not bashful about it. And I'm very open. I don't have set rates. I don't. If somebody calls me up and they say, we want you to shoot this, I just say, okay, well, what's your budget? And I literally just say, is it worth it to me? If it is, I do it.
Do you ask them about usage? What's your intended usage for this?
Only if it's a really high-end commercial job. Like I'll get calls from some of the ad agencies to do, because I'll do ad agency work, and they'll ask me to do stuff. And if I know that thing's going to make them millions and millions and millions of dollars, then usually there's a licensing fee associated with it. Okay. But you'd be amazed. I mean, I have major corporations, literally, I can't say their names right now, but asking me for video and film and photography footage, and they don't want to pay. So I mean, you just have to find what works, and I think for photographers, you also have to balance that line of, what do I do that's going to potentially make me money? Right. Because a lot of photographers are really blind when it comes to that. Like if I know, hey, if this footage from an abandoned amusement park, can't say from where, if this footage from this abandoned amusement park gets put up and it's on one of the 3 major television outlets, and my name is listed there, that could lead to a lot of business. So I don't get so hung up on, well, how much are you paying me? I really don't.
To me, as an amateur, sometimes what I'm looking for is more access to something unique that I wouldn't otherwise, just to set me apart. So,
absolutely. Access is vital.
Yeah. So to me, sometimes that's worth more than money, but it depends on the situation. So I think a lot of photographers, amateurs, feel that they have to offer their wares for free till they sort of prove themselves, and then kind of when is that, and then whether or not the person or the company or the venue or whatever, the client, whether they are respectful of that or whether they're taking advantage of that is a different matter altogether. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't. I tell people, do something 2 or 3 times for free and never do it for free again.
Do you mean with the same client or in general?
In general.
Lifetime.
Lifetime. And the reason for that is it's not because you can make a ton of money. It's not that I'm telling people to go out and make a ton of money. What I'm trying to tell people is it changes the relationship when you actually accept money. And you treat it differently. Right. And they treat you differently. Right. So if you've shot 3 weddings and you feel like you have a general grasp of what you're doing. Now, after 3 weddings, I know all the seasoned pros, they don't know what they're doing after 3 weddings. Of course they don't. But how much are you going to charge for a wedding after you've shot for 3 for free? $250? I'm very open. If somebody pays you $250 for a wedding, it's Russian roulette what they get. I mean, if they're going to be that cheap, it's Russian roulette what they get. So the bottom line is you take the wedding, you do your best job, you have integrity. But for $250, they shouldn't have any high expectation of what they're going to receive. So I think for most photographers, find what it is that you love, get a general idea as to what, for the wedding market in most areas, Southern California, weddings are going to be between $2,000 to $4,000 for most photographers. Okay, so if you understand that, that's in some of the bigger cities. In some of the littler areas, it's going to be between $1,000 to $2,500. So you need to understand that, right. And then just start taking that work. But the most important thing is taking work, even if it's cheap. And then if you find, hey, I did a wedding, See, that's the thing. Look at your work. Compare your work to another $2,000 wedding photographer.
Got it.
Does that help?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I also think it matters, how much you want sort of repeat business and you want to kind of go down that path versus if you're just a weekend warrior and you want to do it for yourself and just for fun and not have too much pressure. But I do feel like if I'm going to ask for money, I better be sure that I can deliver what I promise, what they ask for, that I can get everything in the can. And I'm just getting to the point where I'm starting to.
It's interesting you say that. I honestly have seen it happen many, many times. I really don't. There's going to be an exception, but I don't think there's a longevity associated with people doing weekend warrior stuff for free. You burn out because you're unappreciated. Because anytime you do something for free, you're unappreciated. People may deny that, but it's really the truth. And I don't think you're going to be long in the tooth for that. You're not going to last. You're going to burn out. I tell that people all the time, like, oh, I hate weddings. Why do you hate weddings? Oh, I did this one for free, and they were really mean to me. I'm like, well, when my client barks at me, which by the way, I don't do bridezillas. I'm calm with them. But if my client was, sometimes we shoot a wedding. We were shooting a wedding several places where they were 17, 18 hours, and our dogs are barking, everything. We're tired, and I would just turn to them and say, well, this is going to pay for this trip. In other words, you don't burn out because there's a great thing associated with it, which is moving your business forward. But yeah, I don't. Does that answer? Did I get?
No, that's for those of us who are kind of on that border line of how far they want to sort of take it, because it's a big responsibility. If you walk in and you say, and you contract and you are hired, and you say, I'm going to get this person's most special day, milestone of their life, in the case of weddings, and I'm actually myself less interested in shooting weddings and more I like performances. I like to shoot that kind of thing, where hopefully it's not their only performance. But I think it's a huge responsibility, and you better be sure you can deliver. So.
Right, but keep something in mind. If somebody books you for $250 for a wedding, for example, you shouldn't feel much pressure.
Yeah.
Now, people may say that that's being flippant, or it's not. You're fine. I think the other thing you got to keep in mind, and I tell this to my folks all the time, if you're gonna do anything else, you got to keep this in mind. Weddings is a cash cow.
Right.
If you want to fund your other businesses, you have to find a way to make money in photography.
That's right.
You may say, oh, only want to shoot rock videos. Well, guess what? The market isn't very big for rock videos. So you have to understand that. I do it all the time. I'll shoot a wedding and I'll literally say to myself, well, that just paid for my trip to Africa. Well, that just paid for my trip to England. It really does.
Well, you've got a family to feed too.
I do, but my point is, I literally think along those lines when someone books a wedding or when someone even books a workshop spot, and I'm like, well, that just paid for a plane ticket. Mm-hmm. I really think very practically along those lines. So I don't get caught up in, I don't want to do this type of photography, because I view all of it as a means to an end. Mm. I can shoot these different types of photography and ultimately choose what I want to do. Yeah. I'm now finally, after 8 years in business, I get to choose more of what I want to do. The first six and a half years, I didn't get to choose much of what I wanted to do.
Right.
And people get caught up in that at my workshops all the time. Oh, I don't want to do that. Okay, then don't be a photographer.
It's one of the things that our instructor talks about is, go out and shoot what the client needs, what you're required to shoot, but also shoot for yourself and make sure you're getting something out of that. And whether it's in that shoot or a means for you to then go do your own
Absolutely.
Shoot.
I totally agree.
So that's really been brought home to us. So
Good.
Yeah. One of the things I really want to ask any professional photographer that I meet is just give me, let's say, 2 do's and don'ts for event photography.
2 do's and don'ts. Do whatever you can do to get into that industry. Mm-hmm. And emulate the people who do it the best. When I first got into photography, that was the very first thing that I did was I said, who's the king of the hill? Who can I take? Who can I take down? Who can I chase? Right? Seriously. I mean, that's the way that I think. And not take down in a mean way, but just simply, I'm very competitive. Mm-hmm. And, and I see somebody else is doing it. I'm like, I love their work. I love what they do. Mm-hmm. Not in a demeaning way. I think they're fantastic and I want to emulate them. Like I'm a huge fan of Kobe Bryant, and he's the first one to tell you, he watched Michael Jordan growing up.
Right.
You know, and he emulates him.
Right.
And look at him, he's achieved greatness himself. And so that's what I would tell you, to really look at somebody you admire and, you know, go after that. Don't get, understand your worth. Understand when you need to bend and be flexible. A lot of photographers, you know, when I first started doing event photography, wedding photography type stuff, I would say, oh, the time doesn't matter. I'd see other photographers charging for 8 hours of work, and I'd be like, oh, I'm there all night, no problem. I'm everything, I'm amazing. And then I would find that I get exhausted. Yeah. So look at what other photographers are doing. So don't do that, and definitely don't. Here's the second don't. Don't burn yourself out. Right. You can take something that you truly love, and you can kill it pretty quick. So don't overbook yourself. That'd be one way. You overbook yourself, before you know it, you hate photography.
I feel like that's what in particular amateurs kind of say to themselves, or maybe someone who's been doing it for a while as an amateur, and they're about to retire their regular job, and they're trying to decide if they're going to take it up full time or not. And I feel like they sometimes say, but then I won't love it anymore if I do it for work. You know, it becomes work.
I hear that all the time, and I tell you what, I love my job. Yeah. I mean, I quit hotels. I was a hotel executive. I did it for 10 years. And the day I left, you know, I absolutely love my job. And I'll tell you the secret to my success in regards to keeping that passion is I do fun stuff. Yeah. You know, when people say, well, geez, you're only supposed to do one genre, well, that's bullcrap. Am I allowed to say that? Well. Okay. When people say you're only allowed to do one genre, I mean, I think that's silly, because I think that you can do whatever you want. You can certainly be known for a genre, but you know, I was reaching a burnout level on weddings, and I started doing pinups and other stuff, and it really brought it back for me. So I think just keeping it fresh, so your mind doesn't get bored and you don't go into just muscle memory type photography. So I think if you keep yourself invigorated, I think you keep that passion.
Because that's my next question, and the last official question for my assignment, which is, what excites you about what you do?
What excites me about what I do is I feel like a kid in a candy store. Every time I'm shooting, I'll turn to whoever's next to me, no matter, it could be a complete stranger, and I'll say, I can't believe I get paid to do this. And, you know, are there parts of photography that aren't glamorous? Absolutely. Does my job look glamorous, especially what we put up on YouTube and everything else? Yeah, it does. Is it hard? Yeah, it is. But I love what I do, and I think that keeping that passion, again, is chasing what really fuels you, and just being smart. You know, and lastly, treating it as a business. See, I see photographers who are all business, and they focus very little on the photography part of it. So they're all about marketing, but their photography stinks. Or conversely, they're all about the photography, and they're the starving artist, and then they wonder why they can't make it, and then they burn out. I think you have to have that 50-50 hat. How much am I doing something today to further my photography, and am I doing something today to further my business? I think if you take that approach, you know, I tell photographers all the time, devote time into building your business. Right. It's not going to happen by magic. And you said something earlier. For those people who think you get tons of repeat customers, I heard that myth when I first started. If somebody else has figured it out, congratulations. I mean, I do get repeat business. But what I'm saying is, I mean, I think as an entrepreneur, you know, you are always on your feet trying to create business, because literally the shoot that I book feeds my family. So I'm always thinking about that.
I'm gonna always be thinking about that too. So those are my official questions. So I've done my assignment. So yeah.
High fives.
Awesome. Okay. So what I still want to talk about, though, there's a lot of questions, because I've watched your YouTube videos. How many you got out there by now?
Well, compared to some, I actually don't have too many, but I think I have like 100 and 100 and something. Yeah.
So I'm still catching up, but
yeah.
Okay. So one of the things that came up last year when I just came across you, I don't know, somehow you found me, you know, and I was interested, intrigued to hear that you were basically stepping up and saying, you know, these are the reasons why I've left Nikon. Nothing wrong with Nikon, but for me, the new Sony cameras, which has a kind of a technology, they're going down a little bit different path.
A much different path.
Okay, a much different path. And that got noticed, and so,
yeah, it sure did. It surprised me. It surprised me big time. It really did.
Who did it get noticed by first?
Jeez, I mean, you know, normally when I post a video, nowadays when I post a video, it'll get 3,000 or 4,000 hits the first day. When I first started doing videos, especially back then, I would post a video, get 500 views in a day, right? I posted that video, and quite frankly, people, you know, we've heard all of it. That video was made because Sony paid you. They didn't. That video was made. It was this commercial. It wasn't. That video was made, quite frankly, because I kept posting about the Sonys on my Facebook page, and my fans kept saying, tell us why you're doing this. Right. Because I was the most loyal Nikon guy out there. Right. I mean, I still tell people I have a little bit of Nikon blood running through my veins. I always will. It's just that you know, that it's just part of my heritage. But I filmed it specifically for that reason. I literally drew the list out and did it. But I noticed that it first started getting picked up when the first day, I was like, this thing has like 1,500 views. Then it went to 2,000 views. Then all of a sudden it was on the Photographer and Petapixel and F-Stoppers and SLR Lounge. And thank you guys, for all of you guys for sharing that, by the way. And then it just took off like a wild, I mean, it's 500,000 views or something. So, and then about 10 days after, I'm going to mess up his name, but Rob Scotch, he's a Sony camera guy from Canada, called me up and
from Canada.
Yeah, he called me up and said, hey, or he left an email and said, hey, you know, I'd love to talk to you about it. And so I spoke to him just about doing some conventions and stuff up in Canada. He says, I love your approach. And I said, well, you know, he says, but I'm meeting with the Sony US guys, and when we come with the Sony US guys, then we're going to, he says, I'm going to share your stuff. So then he shared my stuff with the Sony US guys. About 10 days later, it's the end of October, that's when Sony headquarters contacted me. Awesome. About, you know, the rest of this stuff. So it's pretty cool. So
now you are officially a Sony Artisan of Imagery.
Yes, I am. Brings a smile to my face every time.
You know, and that's not nothing. That's a big deal.
It's a pretty big deal. It's exciting to me. It was very gratifying for me, but go ahead.
So how does it feel? What does it mean for you? What does it mean for your career and the kind of level you were at, the level you're trying to be at? And
like I just said, it was incredibly gratifying, and I think that I think if photographers put down their egos and their pride, you want to be recognized. We're artists.
Right.
I mean, we are. And you don't, there's going to be somebody out there watching this video or something that says, I don't want to be an artist, I just do it for the love of it. If that's the case, then that person never posts on social media. If that person never posts on social media, if they don't have a website, if they don't ever publish their work, I believe them. If you publish your work, if you put it anywhere, you want recognition. That's just a straight up truth. So what did it mean to become a Sony Artisan of Imagery? It was a recognition, a validation of the level of photography that I've achieved. Because, you know, you just don't become something like that overnight. Right. Because even though my 10 reasons got noticed, well, if Sony looked at pictures and said, okay, this guy's funny, he's kind of bombastic, but the pictures stink.
Right.
They'd be like, well, thank you for helping us sell cameras. But, and I think that, I also think that the video wouldn't have picked up any traction.
Right.
Because there have been a lot of people who have posted the Switch video.
Right.
There's been a lot.
Right.
And none of them picked up that kind of traction.
Switch video.
And I think that the reason mine picked up traction is because people say, well, he actually is a good photographer.
It's legitimate.
Yeah, and I think that's the main difference. So what does it mean? I mean, out of Nikon, Canon, and Sony, the three major players, there's less than 100 of us who have an official recognition from one of those companies. So, I mean, putting that in perspective, I mean, out of the millions of photographers in the world, or the hundreds of thousands, however many there are, I mean, it's pretty special. So I feel very honored.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. You seem like a really great ambassador of this particular brand, and
I love the brand.
I think it goes well with, you know, what is your personal brand, which is, you know,
crazy.
Well, yeah. But I think it's part of there's a little edginess. This camera, there's something about the technology that's going into the Sony cameras that is, I don't want to say out of the box thinking.
It is out of the box.
It's sort of, that's sort of a worn term, but there is an edginess. There's a willingness to say, okay,
to be different and to
risks.
take risks.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that is actually at the back of my list of questions here is, to you as a photographer, what is a risk that you take, and what is a risk that you recommend amateurs take, and then what are risks you recommend amateurs don't take?